So last time we had sort of completed the Book of Love, Book 5 of Savitri, with 3 cantos. The first canto, The Destined Meeting Place, second canto, Satyavan, and the third canto, Satyavan and Savitri. I will give briefly some of the statistics of these 3 cantos, and then we'll kind of quickly run through the descriptions which are presented in these cantos. Now, the destined meeting place is from sentence number 101.1 to 101.22, which means that there are 22 sentences in this canto, the destined meeting place. 22 sentences and 86 lines in all. In the next canto, Satyavan, it is again, there is only one section again there, 102.1 to 102.63, which means again there are 63 sentences in all, and the total number of lines is 265. In the third canto, Satyavan and Savitri, we have 3 sections. The first section, 103, it is from 103.1 to 103.76, or 76 sentences, with a total number of 444 lines. In section 2, 104.1 to 104.21, we have 21 sentences, and the third section, 105.1 to 105.10, there are 10 sentences. In other words, the total number of sentences in this third canto is 107. The total number of lines is canto 3, 444 lines. Total number of lines in the canto 3, 444 lines. So the total number of sentences in the Book of Love is 192, and total number of lines 795. Total number of lines 795. In the revised edition, which came out in 1993, there is an additional line. So according to it, there will be 796 lines in the revised edition. But we are going essentially by the first edition, you see, 795 lines, you see. Now, again, you see from these broad statistics that generally the pattern of composition is such that 25% of the sentences are stanzas, 4-line sentences. Means practically every 4th sentence is a stanza. And in one of the earlier comments in a letter, Sri Aurobindo said that it had been kind of voluntary, it had been kind of happening naturally that the pattern was repeating in terms of stanzas, 4-line sentences, and he had to make a very special effort to remove that monotony of 4-line, 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 you see. But still, you can see the predominance of 4-line sentences in Savitri throughout, you see. That is the poetic aspect of the technique, you see. And that 75% are non-stanzas is a very meritorious thing, you see, very beautiful thing, you see. Otherwise, the whole thing would have become very monotonous, dull. It would not have been an epic. It would have been a lyrical composition, you see. So these are the statistics. We will now quickly see some of the highlights of the book of law to kind of recapitulate how the whole book developed. And as I said earlier, that this book was essentially written by Shabendra during 1945, 1946, about that time, maybe in 6 months or so. See. And now we'll go to the text quickly, picking up some key elements of the book to get a general idea how the whole thing was developed. And as I said, that the book was essentially composed in 1945-46, about the times. There was a very small, very brief draft earlier, but then the final thing came out at this time. In other words, we see that in this book there is the full final inspiration of Savitri present in it. Earlier he was trying, doing this, redrafting, drafting, and things like that, you see. In fact, part 1, first half of Savitri, he wrote himself number of times in his own hand till 1944. He kept on repeating. As a matter of fact, the very first canto, the Symbol Dawn, he wrote something like 25 times to get the inspiration which he wanted to come in Savitri. Once that got sort of stabilized, he got the hang of it, then it started flowing. So it is that aspect of the flow which is what you see in the Book of Law. The spontaneity and the ease with which the poetry moves, and of course the sweetness pertaining to the Book of Law. You see. It's a very sweet book, as I was telling you here, you see. And the sweetness, although it is a book of love, not in the romantic sense, not in the Kalidasian sense, not at all in the erotic sense, but there is the psycho-spiritual inspiration behind the whole thing. The sweetness is psycho-spiritual in it, essentially. And the psycho-spiritual, the kind of noblest achievement which is possible in a language. This is what you see in the Book of Law. Now, the book begins, the destined meeting place, and the opening lines are, but now the destined spot and hour were close, 101.1. Now the destined spot and hour were close. Unknowing she had near her nameless goal. This is a very crucial statement. It is not only in the nature of a beautiful narrative, but it has in it enormous amount of occult content. This particular opening sentence itself is loaded with occult implications. But now the destined spot and hour were close. And of course the book itself begins with but now. But now. In other words, there is a connection with the previous description, in the sense that Savitri was going from place to place almost for a year in search of a life partner. And she did not find anyone at all. She went to different places, to temples, to palaces, to kingdoms, to villages, everywhere. No, 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 no. She has been traveling, traveling, traveling. But now the moment has come when she is going to find her life's partner, the destined spot and the destined hour. Now, destined spot is not only in terms of their coming together and meeting, that as if it has been destined somewhere else up, and it is going to precipitate here on the ground. It is going to occur here on the earth. That is the destined spot and the destined hour. Everything is calculated in space and time, a thing to happen. This event must take place in space at this point, at this place, and this event here now. You see, everything is fixed. In other words, the destined meeting place and destined meeting time are kind of predestined, predestined elsewhere in the transcendent. They must meet. If Savitri is the divine Shakti herself incarnate in a human form, she has a mission to carry. She has a work to do. She must accomplish in her life what has been assigned to her as a task. And therefore, everything should move in that direction. She has now matured up, she has grown up into a full maidenhood, and from now onward, her active part of life should begin. So, it has already been destined, fixed, elsewhere up. It has now going to happen here in the human conditions. And the narrative is therefore simultaneously moving on both the planes, on the human as well as the transcendent. Simultaneously it is moving, and you have to see the meaning both ways. That although as if we are moving in the human manner, but the things are also happening elsewhere up in the transcendent, in the higher realms, somewhere there, see. But now the destined spot and hour were close. Unknowing, she had neared her nameless goal. Now, that's the beauty. The word unknowing is a very beautiful word, very purposefully, intentionally introduced there, in the sense that Savitri has taken the human birth. At the same time, Savitri, as the divine incarnate, has a work to do to fulfill destiny, has to be worked out. But Savitri, because she has taken the human birth, is not able to see what is written in front of her at every moment and at every time. There is a veil of humanity which is there in front of her, which will not show immediately what is going to happen. But from behind, the divine Savitri knows, yes, this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen. And the divine Savitri is making things move knowingly. Human Savitri is moving from place to place unknowingly. And it is that meeting which is important. Therefore, it says, unknowing, she had neared the nameless goal. Savitri has no idea at the moment what is she going to do, whether it is here that the goal will be found, the destiny will be found, destiny will be worked out. She has no idea at all about that thing. And that space which is there, where they are going to meet Satyavan and Savitri, is fixed. Nothing happens in the cosmic play. I am reading the next sentence too, last two lines of that. Nothing happens in the cosmic play but at its time and in its foreseen place. At its time and in its, both of them are fixed. Where? By whom? By the cosmic designer. The destiny which is being molded by the cosmic fate. It is that cosmic element. In other words, see, as we have been saying all along, there are three layers of operation. One is the individual, one is the cosmic, and the other one is the transcendent. In the transcendent, meeting of Satyavan and Savitri is already fixed. It has now to be worked out in the dimensions of cosmic operation. Fate, space, time, they had to come together and work out certain details on the cosmic plane. But That fulfillment of cosmic operation is possible only when the individual participates in it. Individual has to be open to that. Otherwise, fate remains unfulfilled, unworked out. All the three are necessary. They have to go together. And that is exactly what is happening in the case of Satyavan and Savitri. Yes, Satyavan and Savitri must meet, fixed up there. Now, the whole cosmic operation has to unroll and work out the details. And in that working out the details, the individual participation, Satyavan must come from one side, Savitri must come one side, they must meet, and all those things have to happen. That is the cosmic play. Now, this place is a very beautiful place where they are going to meet 104.4. It is a place that lived under the eyes of eternity. The destined meeting place is supervised from above by eternity itself. Yes, this has to happen here. Under the eyes of eternity, all these things had to happen here in the cosmic play. Right. And therefore, naturally, when Savitri is going from place to place and coming to this point, the expectation beats its wings, wings of expectation beat and arrive at this place, you see. The chariot moves with that expectation. Yes, this is the place where I will meet my future partner. That expectation is already indicated there, you see. And then we have whole place is, of course, a very beautiful place. We have seen the description. But for all that thing to happen, the cosmic play to work out itself, what is important, what is necessary is that there has to be the depth of luminous peace. If such an activity has to happen, there has to be the depth of luminous peace. It is in peace alone, Shanti. It is that which is the substratum for anything to happen and to work out. Therefore, this place is a place of peace. He says that, no? Yeah, 101.13. Primeval peace was there, and in its bosom held undisturbed the strife of bird and beast. Unless that peace is there, nothing will work out. And if such a significant event has to occur, it has to be in the bosom of peace. Otherwise, it has no value, you see. And then, of course, these are the mystic codes and doors of ecstasy and golden house. See, where what is going to happen? 101.21. Here were disclosed to her, to Savitri, here were disclosed to her the mystic codes, the lurking doors of beauty and surprise. Surprise, of course, suddenly she is going to meet somebody here. The wings that murmur in the golden house. This is a golden house. The destined meeting place is a golden house. The temple of sweetness and the fiery isle. Both, there is the sweetness in it, there is the fieriness also. Vibrant, intense, luminous. All those things are packed in one single place there, you see. Simultaneously, you see. And then, so then, see, this is what happens. And then the most mysterious thing is he has been describing how Savitri is moving and all that. And suddenly in the last sentence, 101.22, we have a stranger on the sorrowful roads of time and immortal under the yoke of death and fate, a sacrificant of the bliss and pain of the spheres. This is what divine Satyavan has done. He has sacrificed his divinity. He has become a stranger here in the mortal world. He is moving the immortal under the yoke of death and fate. And it is that death and fate which is going to be encountered by Savitri. Love in the wilderness met Savitri. It is here that love, Satyavan, he has not named him yet, but it is love, Satyavan, who will come and meet here in this wilderness. He is a sacrificant. He is a stranger here. He is the immortal under the yoke of death and fate. Unless he accepts the yoke of death and fate, there is no possibility of redemption of this mortal world. He has to come down here and accept this yoke of death and fate. Then only things can be set right. It is not by simply sitting up there, things will happen. He must come and accept that. So that is what this means. Love in the wilderness met Savitri. Actually, in the beginning itself, we have the description of three disputants born of inconscience. In the first canto, three disputants born of inconscience: earth, love, death. Earth is a disputant, love is a disputant, death is a disputant. The struggle is between these three, and it is the problem of this which has to be solved by Savitri. So this is what they meet here now. They come together and they meet here. Love, yeah.
Could you explain how love is born out of inconscience?
Yeah. In fact, all these three are born of inconscience. He says love, death, and earth. Let me see if I can quickly get that line. 2.35. All came back to her, earth and love and doom. And then he says, the ancient disputants encircled her, like giant figures wrestling in the night. The Godheads, born from the dim inconscient, about to struggle, born from the dim inconscient. Now, you see, he names three: love, earth, and doom. He doesn't name Savitri, of course, in that. See. Because earth has been created as a specific center to carry out the divine manifestation in this creation through evolution. Through evolution. It has been created in the inconscience so that the evolution moves on from this point onward. So earth is definitely born of inconscience. Doom naturally is inconscience embodied. Doom or death is the shadow of the Supreme put in the inconscience and presenting itself to Savitri later on. He is born of inconscience. Now love. Love, as we have seen earlier, is the divine himself who has plunged into the inconscient void. And it is that who is coming out. In fact, Mother says, who is Satyavan? He is the divine who has plunged into the void. And therefore, he is the permanent avatar. She calls Satyavan as the permanent avatar. He is therefore stationed in the void, the divine himself stationed in the void for a certain purpose. It is that which has to come out up. And it is that Satyavan who is in the grip of death. He has taken the station in the inconscience so that it is through that process evolution can move forward. In fact, that is what we got in the later by Shivantu on the back side of this page. Satyavan is the soul carrying the divine truth of being within itself, but descended into the grip of death and ignorance. Descended into the grip of death and ignorance. He is born of inconscience. Satyavan is the soul carrying the divine truth of being within itself, but descended into the grip of death and ignorance. So he is the sacrificant. The divine has sacrificed himself. It is the holocaust of the Supreme. He has plunged here into the darkness and taken the station. And now the task of Savitri is to remove that grip of death and ignorance which is there around the neck of Satyavan. In fact, that is the whole issue in Savitri. And therefore he comes here, love in the wilderness naturally met Savitri.